So we're excited to have with us today the team from Forest Carbon Works. So I'd like to introduce them very quickly and then I'll pass it over to Sarah. Our first presenter is Sarah Ford. She's the Chief Forestry Officer. Additionally, we have Matt Olson, our Senior Membership Advisor, and Matthew Harrison, the Southeast Associate Forester. So they'll walk us through how landowners can turn good forest management to new opportunities for revenue through carbon markets. So let's get started. I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So, hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. And again, thank you, Michelle, and the Forest Landowners Association for hosting us today. I'm Sarah Ford, and I am the Chief Forestry Officer with Forest Carbon Works and Chestnut Carbon. I lead our natural resources team with professional foresters supporting enrollment in our carbon program, forest inventory and forest management, and also oversee planting operations for our afforestation program in the Southeast. I'm based out of Northern Vermont in Stowe, where I've been active in forestry and natural resources for the last 20 years. So joining me today, we also have Matt Olson. He is also in Northern Vermont. Matt's one of our senior membership advisors on our sales team, focused on enrolling landowners in our carbon program for private forest landowners, which, like Michelle said, we're going to give you some more information on over the next half hour or so. And then also we have Matthew Harrison with us today. Matt's located in Mississippi. He is our Southeastern Associate Forester, here to help us answer questions, especially Southern forestry focused, at the end of the presentation. All right, so for today's presentation, we're going to give some background on who we are, an overview of carbon offsets, market demand, and access. We also will describe how carbon projects are developed, our role as a developer, explain our sales process, contract terms, and then lastly, we will get into some of the financial benefits of carbon projects and also highlight some of our members in our carbon program. We are going to have lots of time for questions at the end. So like Michelle mentioned, please do add questions to the chat as you have them while we are talking. So we are Forest Carbon Works, part of Chestnut Carbon. And at Forest Carbon Works, we develop improved forest management projects, which are often referred to as IFM. These are projects that promote forest carbon storage and sequestration compared to that of surrounding forests. At Forest Carbon Works, or FCW, we are providing landowners access to carbon markets, diversified revenue streams, and really a means of conserving forests and family legacies. We've enrolled properties in more than 37 states in our carbon program across over 180,000 acres as of today, and going on 280 plus or 300 landowners. We have a really long history of carbon project development and expertise in our team at Forest Carbon Works, starting back in 2016 under EP Carbon. In 2022, we were bought by Chestnut Carbon and Kimmeridge. Kimmeridge is an alternative asset manager in the energy sector. At Chestnut, we really are situating ourselves as one of the preeminent nature-based solutions providers, restoring native biodiverse forests on marginal agricultural and pasture lands through our afforestation projects that are based in the Southeast. To date, we have succeeded in planting more than 17 million trees across over 30,000 acres in 7 states. So our team has more than 3 decades of carbon project experience at FCW, working in multiple carbon registries and markets. We're using proprietary carbon inventory and land evaluation tools that really help us streamline costs and maximize efficiency. Our inventory tool is really one of the primary ways that we're creating carbon market access for family forest owners, and also work opportunities where in the communities where we're working, where our projects are based. carbon markets, I think as many of us know, are complicated. And we really excel at simplifying the development process for landowners and also for our stakeholders. So our forests in the US really have this enormous carbon offset potential. More than 1/3 of the forest in the US, more than 1/3 of the US is forested. Certain parts of that are very productive, which you can see shown by the areas that are darker green on the map here on the screen. These areas have higher amounts of live tree biomass. In the US, our forests are offsetting upwards of almost probably 16% of our annual emissions. 60% of our forests are privately owned. And then of these 60%, 39% are owned by families, meaning they're non-industrial and between 5 and 5,000 acres in size. This is really significant in that it's presenting an important opportunity for climate mitigation, carbon storage, while also these forests are at risk. This is because the average landowner age in the United States is 65 to 70 years old, which means that these forests are therefore very susceptible to generational transfers, increasing the risk for parcelization, fragmentation, development. Carbon markets, therefore, are really presenting this good opportunity for finance, to finance conservation, diversified revenue streams, and for forest protection, also really helping, therefore, to secure family forest legacies. So while carbon markets are certainly a great mechanism to reward forest owners for sequestering or who are sequestering carbon and conserving their forests, there are also different varieties or flavors of carbon credits. Two of these types are removal credits and avoidance or reduction credits. Removal credits are those that are generated from activities that are capturing and removing or sequestering that carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, such as a reforestation project or tree planting. Avoidance credits are for activities that reduce planned greenhouse gas emissions through a change in management, like crediting standing stock in a forest for a planned change in management over a certain duration of time. The carbon market's really not only attractive to forest owners for the opportunity to get paid for conservation, it's also a very important tool for companies to help meet their net zero goals, which I think is being really, we're hearing about more and more. There's starting to be increased amount of research that shows that companies that are using carbon credits to reduce their emissions are actually reducing emissions faster. And then those that are buying higher quality carbon credits are having greater amounts of emissions reduction. So really just further strengthening the use case for the carbon market. So as we are having or seeing more companies committing to these emission reduction goals, what we've seen is really a significant growth in the voluntary market. What you see here in this chart is showing how the value of the voluntary market has increased cumulatively to over $11 billion in the last 20 years. It's actually projected to continue to grow to beyond $30 billion by 2030, even upwards of $250 billion potentially, according to some projections. The primary driver for this really is all of the net zero commitments that are being made by major US corporations. 74% of major US corporations have made active net zero commitments by 2030. So demand really has therefore remained strong for projects that continue to be backed by quality and integrity in the voluntary carbon market, especially as the market itself has been subject to some amounts of increasing scrutiny in the past few years. Improved forest management credit pricing also has been continuing to increase year over year, as we also have seen transactions of these credits increasing with some of the latest data showing that in 2024, transactions increased more than 3 times than what they were in 2023. So a lot of demand still for these high quality improved forest management credits. So nature-based solutions really play a crucial role in mitigating climate change, not by using our natural ecosystems to do so. They're capturing and storing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, really, as they've done for millennia. These approaches include reforestation, wetland restoration, improved agricultural practices, forest conservation, and they're really helping to reduce greenhouse gases, but also have many, many important co-benefits attached, such as enhancing biodiversity, improving water quality, protecting against soil erosion, and also supporting communities through increasing resilience to climate impacts. Also, nature-based solutions are very scalable, often, or many say, more scalable than the newer technologies, such as carbon capture and storage, which are still developing and can frequently be cost prohibitive. Because nature-based solutions do not have these financial and technological barriers, they are easier to implement and more feasible to deploy. Forest carbon offsets or IFM credits are one type of these, or one option for this. So at Forest Carbon Works, we really are making sure that our IFM credits are adhering to very rigorous quality standards. This is critical as there are a very wide range of carbon credits on the market. These have varying qualities and values. Frequently, credits of lower pricing or value are of lower quality. Something that we ensure is that our projects are additional, meaning that the carbon benefits from the project would not have happened without the project, would not have happened without the carbon market. This includes altering harvest levels and protecting the forests that are in our project for the long term. We also make sure that we are maintaining permanence and durability via our projects, specific to the length of our program, which also in turn supports co-benefits, like I've mentioned, such as soil and water quality, water protection, wildlife habitat, and also biodiversity. This also enables us to really market our credits at a high value and at a premium. We are conservative with our measurements, ensuring that we're not over-crediting. So another really important measure of quality and integrity in a carbon project. We're only issuing removal credits. So these are credits that are based on the incremental growth of the forest. So crediting the actual capture of carbon, removal of carbon from the atmosphere that's happening as a result of our projects. And then lastly, all of our projects are third-party verified. Another really important part of the process, meaning that we have third-party auditors or verifiers coming out to our project sites each year to ensure that we are adhering to these rigorous quality standards. So how are we improving market access? We are doing this in multiple ways, one of which is through our competitive revenue share-based payments that we offer. This allows landowners to capitalize on market growth. We manage all aspects of the enrollment process for our landowners, and this is at no cost to the landowner. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, our credits are again backed by that permanence and durability that does enable us to market them at that top tier pricing. Once enrolled, all of the responsibilities and encumbrances for being in our carbon program are really minimal. Our team manages all of the heavy lifting. We have a team of foresters that are available to support forest management and harvest related needs. We are only selling our credits to buyers that have proven commitments to emissions reductions, therefore being very selective of the buyers that we are working with. And then also our highly experienced teams really are great at and excel at navigating all of those complexities of carbon markets and project development, everything from project design to measurement to verification to credit issuance. So upon enrolling in our carbon program, which we call FCW Conserve, we do have a multitude of benefits for our members. These include premium annual payments, access to forestry expertise, and carbon market expertise as well through our professional foresters, and also just the level of experience that's on our teams. We do offer a significant amount of harvest flexibility, which Matt will go into in a little bit more detail coming up here. We have foresters that are on staff to help with our forest management needs again, and forest management plan development for harvesting when harvesting occurs. We also can make site visits when needed. Our average annual payments typically are $20 to $30 per acre per year in the southeastern part of the US. But where I am in the Northeast, they're probably closer to $15 per acre per year. And they fluctuate with forest type and productivity. So we are able to provide information on payments, of course, when we are evaluating landowners for enrollment in our program. The payments, again, are structured on a revenue share of the price that we are selling our credits for. For program eligibility, you do need to have privately owned forest that is a minimum of 100 acres in size. You have to own your timber rights. And we also require the enrollment of all eligible forest land. We do work with landowners across the entire United States. So our program is available in all of the continental United States and southeastern Alaska, and all forest types qualify for our program as well. And like I mentioned previously, we manage all aspects of project development. So that includes everything from project design to measurement, to verification, to credit issuance and credit sales. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Matt now to go into our enrollment process in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And thanks again, everyone, for joining the webinar here today. So as Sarah mentioned, I'm Matt Olson. I'm a membership advisor here on the team at FCW. So I work with landowners really all throughout the Eastern United States, helping them through our enrollment process, helping to better understand the requirements and benefits of the program, and then ultimately enrolling their land in our program. So I'm just going to take a few minutes here to go over some of the details about the program, including our enrollment process, our contract period, and then a little bit more information on our payments. So to start out here with our enrollment process, it begins with filling out an application on our website and connecting with a membership advisor on the team, such as myself. We'll then review the details about the land to make sure it qualifies for the program, and then send out an initial proposal, usually within about a couple of weeks. And after that, if you decide to move forward with enrolling in the program, we'll then send out the first advanced annual payment within 30 days of enrolling and receiving your payment information. And shortly after that, usually within a few months or so, we'll conduct an on-site carbon inventory just to verify the initial carbon stocks on the land. And from that point forward, it's generally a pretty passive process for the landowner. We really do all of the heavy lifting on our end as far as verifying and selling the credits that are being generated from the land. And on an ongoing basis, really the main thing that we ask of our members is just to fill out this short annual survey each year, really just to update us on any changes to the land or other ownership information. So once you're enrolled in the program, we begin with a 25-year payment period, or also referred to as our 25-year crediting period. And this is where our members receive a minimum of 25 years of annual payments. The first payment, as I mentioned before, is paid upfront at the time of enrolling. And then from that point forward, the annual payments are sent out at about the same time each year. And I'll go over our payment model here in another slide just in a little bit. But during this time, we do include some flexibility for timber harvest, like Sarah mentioned. It does include Forest Carbon Works approval and forest certification. We actually use Forest Stewardship Council certification for all, excuse me, for all of the commercial timber harvests that take place during this first 25-year period. But on top of that, our members also have access really at any time to our entire team of regional foresters, such as Matt Harrison, who's on the call here today. And they're really here to help answer any forest management related questions and also help advise on and certify any upcoming harvests that our members might have. And again, during this time, we really just ask that our members fill out that annual survey that I mentioned in the last slide. So as soon as the payment period ends, we then move into what we call our 35-year monitoring period. And this period of time really exists to make sure that there's some sense of permanence to the carbon offset value that's being generated during the payment period. And also to make sure that the forest land is truly being conserved to some extent over the long term. But during this time, the requirements are generally very flexible. There's much more flexibility for commercial timber harvest during this time. We no longer require any FCW approval or certification for harvest during the monitoring period. And then lastly, the annual survey that's required during the payment period is also no longer required in the monitoring period. Overall, this period is really just about making sure that the carbon stock that was credited for during the first 25 years of the program remains stored in the forest during this additional period of time. So here I just wanted to give a little bit more detail on how our payments are structured. So as I mentioned, again, within 30 days of enrolling, we send out that first payment. And then for years 2 through 25 of the program, we offer what we call our revenue share payment model, which basically allows for landowners to directly benefit from any increases in carbon pricing in the future, as opposed to just and for every landowner that we work with, we always provide a conservative projection of what your revenue share payment might look like before enrolling in the program, just to make sure that you have a good understanding of the total value that you might receive from the program if you decide to move forward. And just a quick point here for much higher acreage properties, usually at least a couple thousand forested acres or so, that are also very high productivity. We can often offer customized proposals as it relates to both the payments and also our harvesting requirements, just to work with any specific management plans you might have. All right, and then just really quickly here, I just wanted to mention our referral program. So this is where we provide a per acre payment for referring anyone to Forest Carbon Works that ends up signing up in the program. So as you can see here, it begins at $2 per acre for any properties under 1,000 acres, and then slowly tapers off from there with a maximum referral award of up to $10,000. And this referral program really, applies to anyone, whether it's a forester, land manager, a current member, or really anyone who refers someone to the program. And then here, this map is here really just to give an illustration of the total number of acres that are enrolled in the carbon program across the country. So as you can see, some of the areas where we work most heavily include states like Georgia, Virginia, West Virginia, other areas like California and Oregon. But as Sarah mentioned earlier, at this point, we've enrolled a little bit over 180,000 forested acres in the program, and we're continuing to grow and work with more and more landowners in more and more states across the country. And then in this last slide here, we just wanted to highlight some of our current members enrolled in the program. And as you can see, a lot of our members, they really range across the country, from family forest owners in Mississippi with a few hundred acres up to larger ranches in Oregon with nearly 10,000 forested acres. But what we see across all of our members is that there's really three main reasons why they choose to enroll in our program. The first is really the family legacy and wanting to ensure that the land stays in their family into the long-term future. And then second, they want to ensure that the land stays conserved into the long term, regardless of who the future owner is. And by enrolling in our program, there really is a sense of assurance that the forest will remain as forest. And then lastly here, of course, there's the obvious benefit of receiving passive annual payments from the program, which can help to cover ongoing costs like property taxes or just other costs associated with managing the land. And that concludes our presentation that we had here. So I can maybe pass it back to Michelle here and open it up for Q&A.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Matt and Sarah. That was a lot of great information for everyone to take in. So if you have any questions, either put them in the Q&A feature or the chat. And I see one coming in already, so I'll pass this along. The first question is, do payments stop after 25 years? And additional with that question is, can they lease their property for hunting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the payments do stop after 25 years. We have that additional 35-year monitoring period that I talked about after that. Again, it's much more flexible during that time. We just really want to make sure that the carbon that was credited for stays on the land during that extra period of time. But to answer the question about I believe it was a hunting lease on the property.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so that in pretty much every case is completely fine. Most other programs can be compatible with our program as long as it doesn't necessarily legally require or legally restrict timber harvesting during that time.
Perfect. Okay, here's another question. Are properties being placed on permanent conservation easements, or do the restrictions lift after 70 years?
The easement type of easement it's actually an MOA, a memorandum of agreement that we place on the deed that is only for the length of the contract. So it does lift after the 60 years, and we manage all of that. So we place the MOA on the deed and also remove it from the deed, the property, just to ensure the project stays with the land if any land is transferred.
Got it. Okay. What are the limitations on timber harvesting?
I can start, and then maybe Matt Harrison, I pass it over to you. So we set aside 10% of carbon stocking for climate smart forestry at the beginning of project. So for every landowner's property, we are able to quantify what that is. So landowners have that amount of flexibility at the beginning of their enrollment for the duration of the 25 years. And that's why we have our foresters to really help provide guidance on what management practices will work within that amount of stocking that's set aside. And then, like Matt mentioned, we do require Forest Stewardship Council certification for commercial harvesting, which we manage all of that. We hold an FSC group certificate. So if there's forest management plans that are needed, we'll manage that. Any certification requirements, like obviously audit verifications, reporting, that's all handled by FCW in conjunction with landowners and their foresters. Offer customization for larger landowners, can and will frequently allow greater amounts of harvesting because larger landowners have more flexibility in removal amounts. I know Matt Harrison, you work a lot with harvest requests in your area in the Southeast. So maybe I'll let you add anything if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Just over the 25-year payment period, we have a 10% harvest allowance. So,
Yeah.
If you have, 500 acres, you're just limited to 10% of that over that.
Yeah.
As a normal landowner, we do offer some flexibility within that. And like Sarah said, can work with what your existing forest management plan says to try to fit you in our program.
Great. Another question about forest management. Do you allow prescribed burning?
We do. We do need notification first, but it is allowed within our project design, prescribed burning.
And
Great.
and to add to the harvesting, also, we, like Sarah said, notification for the burning, we would require a 6-month prior notification before any commercial harvest.
That's right. Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Lots of good questions coming in. Okay. Are you selling to other carbon brokers? Or are you selling to end users like Fortune 500 companies?
We sell primarily to end users. So we've sold to Microsoft has been one of the first Fortune 500 end user that comes to mind. We sold to Sol Systems, a solar company. We've sold to Apollo Global. We've sold to we've sold some JP Morgan. We have a handful of different corporates that we've sold to so far.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. As long as you don't harvest the timber volume grown during the first 25 years, can you harvest any additional growth during the last 35 years?
Yes, you have quite a bit of flexibility in what you can harvest in those 35 years. So you have to essentially maintain a volume that's equivalent to what we've issued credits for in your forest in those 35 years. So that actually opens up quite a bit of runway to what you could theoretically harvest in the 35 years. So we have estimation tools and for what we project that would be based on our projection or on our credit issuance projection extending out into that 35 years. So we can give you basal area numbers. We're working on board feet, actual usable metrics for foresters and land managers to provide just more granularity on the 35 years, since that is understandably in a long time and a much less tangible period of time for a lot of folks.
For the startup phase, do you have workers on site taking stock of the timber, or is it done electronically?
Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about the assessment?
Yes. So you're talking Matt Olson or Matt Harrison?
Either one. I've just realized double Matt.
So I can go ahead. Once you reach out to like Matt Olson and the sales team, and they kind of go through the process of enrollment. I'm sorry, I think my computer is lagging a little bit. Once you go through the process of enrollment, we can then look at your property, assess what your species composition is on the forest, give a rough estimate of what we think the value is from there. And then once you sign, within 3 to 6 months, we would come and actually do a forest inventory, carbon forest inventory on your property. And then from there, we would come back periodically to just ensure that those stocks are still growing.
Right. Okay, a few more questions. As I understand what you said, all the timberland on property needs to be enrolled rather than selected stands or areas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's a requirement of our methodology. Yeah, that all forested land under the same controlling ownership does have to be enrolled. And really the main purpose of this is to avoid what's called activity shifting leakage, kind of the idea that someone might enroll, let's say 100 acres in a carbon program, and then shift all of the potential future harvesting activity to a separate 100-acre tract that's not enrolled. So our methodology is really just trying to kind of avoid that issue by having this requirement in place.
Got it. Okay. We're in the process of harvesting 40-year-old pine plantations, but we're replanting. How does that affect the application process?
It affects it that our minimum age requirement for southern pine is 10 years old, just for a merchantability standpoint, that we can prove that. So you would have to wait a minimum of 10 years to get those acres enrolled in the program
That makes sense.
and being paid
And-
for this.
Right. Got it. And are there accommodations for oil and gas exploration and production?
Matt Olson, what are your thoughts? Oh,
Oh,
your
we can't
sound
hear
went-
you for
your
some
sound went
reason.
away.
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, the answer is it really depends. We would want to just take a look at the existing lease that's in place. We have been able to work with folks in the past that have had that situation, but it really just depends on the specific terms that are in that lease agreement.
Right. Let's see, I've got 4 more on deck. Okay. Is the requirement for all property to be enrolled flexible? For example, an owner with multiple properties may have other long-term leases that would prohibit a forest carbon lease. I think you might have sort of answered this a bit, but I'll let you guys dive into it. Oh, now we can't hear Sarah.
So
There we go.
I was just rereading the question to myself. So what we require with all property being enrolled is that anything with majority ownership, so greater than 50% ownership, has to be enrolled. So depending on LLC structures, that is what essentially we do take a look at all ownership structures to ensure we're meeting that requirement. So we can, of course, talk to landowners, LLCs, et cetera, about how that may or may not work. Other leases, that is another, it depends, depending on the nature of that lease and how it may interact or interfere really with our carbon project. That's our ultimate concern is how would an activity that a landowner is committed to interfere with the carbon project. So we evaluate and assess all of that during our assessment process.
Got it. Okay. Does land owned by a private charitable foundation qualify?
As long as land is, go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
I was going to say it should. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that was my answer too. It really should. We can really work with just about any private land ownership. We can't work with any public government-owned land, but as long as there's no kind of all-out restriction on timber harvesting on the land, then I would say it's likely that we can work with that.
Great. Can you sign up for another 25 years of payments after the first 25?
As of right now, we can't. There could be a possibility for that in the future, but the way things are structured right now, it will just be the first 25 years.
Got it. Are there any startup costs or project design for conducting a timber cruise or inventory?
There are none that we place on the landowner incurs or the party that we're working with. We handle all of that, cover all of that ourselves. And the credit pricing or the payment structure for our landowner payment structure captures all of that.
Great. Okay, the last question I have is, what was the carbon credit accreditation service program that your organization is using?
Yeah, I realized we didn't mention that. So our for the Improved Forest Management project and program that we have been speaking about today, we are registering those projects under VERA. So the Verified Carbon Standard we're using that program, that carbon registry, and that is where our methodology is peer reviewed and approved. For the other arm of the business, the afforestation, reforestation project that I spoke to in the beginning, where we are not currently working with private landowners, that is under a different registry under Gold Standard. But VERA is the answer to this question.
Got it. Great questions, everyone. If anyone else has any other questions, I'll kind of make this the last call for that and give them a minute. And oh, that one popped up. Okay. Financially, do you share the calculation split for payments upfront in contract phase? Example, as carbon credit prices hopefully rise in the future, there is a known split to expect.
Yes, yeah, that is something that we always include in the proposal that we share up front. And it's a gross revenue share. So regardless of whether Forest Carbon Works costs go up or down, it wouldn't necessarily affect the landowner's payments. But the exact percentage is based on overall acreage, overall productivity of the land, and a few other factors. So it can vary depending on the specific piece of land we're looking at, but we definitely do share that and have that set before moving forward with the program.
Great. Okay, one more. So stands less than 10 years old cannot be enrolled, but it was said all timberland is to be included.
I meant to
That is,
say, you're not being
go-
paid. You're
go
not
ahead,
being paid on those acres until 10 years old. So if you have 200 acres that, let's say 20 of that is young forest under 10 years old, it would still need to be enrolled, but you would not receive payment for those acres until year 10.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And I think Austin had another question in the chat about prescribed burning. And we do allow prescribed burning. We just need just a little notification beforehand. That's it, verbal notification.
Right. Great questions, everyone. Good stuff. I really want to thank our presenters today for giving us all of this great information. If you do have any other questions that come up later on, we will include their contact information in the follow-up email. So don't hesitate to reach out to them. And with that, I just wanted to thank the Forest Carbon Works team for joining us today. And we look forward to working with you in the future.